Hello everyone, and welcome to my 6-month self-code review. If you didn't see my other video, I posted a video about my progress from before Lambda School till about 3-4 months into Lambda School, and then where I am currently, which is over 6 months into Lambda School, finishing up the full stack section. You can go watch that video for like the full details of where I'm at, and there's probably going to be another one, if not already another video specifically about Lambda. But in this one, I'm going to go through those same 3 projects and go through the code. So starting with History of Science website, which is a Wikipedia-like site for scientists and science research. This was a college project. It was a final. Did very well for some reason, I guess because technically the HTML and CSS worked. Yeah. Anyway, I wanted to look at the architecture of this. So I cut myself some slack on this final and test file here, so this is going to be the root directory. I just didn't know how GitHub worked, is why there's an extra folder there. So if we can open this up, I'm sure no one sees anything wrong right off the bat, which is just, this is fine. No. Okay, so I have one CSS file, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 separate HTML files just chilling here in the root directory. Those could probably be broken up and grouped together and put into folders. And then I have an images folder, so I didn't know that much, but you open it, and look at that. Too much. Way too much, too unorganized. And that's not even getting into, like, these aren't as bad. The naming on these still isn't very good, but I feel like the naming on these are probably some of the worst. But let's go. I know this is one thing I wanted to show you all. Noticing the one CSS file, look at this over here. You can see the display on the side. Okay, this is, almost 300 lines of CSS, just straight down the page. No groupings, no comments. And it's not even very efficient CSS. Look at all these IDs. I wouldn't do that, no. Like, I don't use IDs unless I have a reason, which is very rarely. Classes pretty much work for everything I need or want to do. I don't know what VS Code thinks is an error now, but it's probably right. Okay, our index HTML page here. There's not enough white space is my first problem. I feel like I'm looking at so much right here. The indenting isn't the worst. I have an A-link wrapping an image inside of an H1. Sorry, that one got me for a second. Okay, I would break this nav apart. The nav's fine. ULLI, that's not the worst. I promise I won't do this for every page. I mean, this is not me refactoring a, I don't even know, 2-year-old project, something, 1.5 at least. But yeah, you can see basically what I'm getting at here. There's lots of room for code improvement on this. It's a mess, but really there's not too much that could be done about that specifically because of the nature of the beast. Probably make them separate paragraph tags instead of this, but it happens. I think we've seen enough on this one. I think you get the idea of where I was at after this wasn't even my first college course in programming. I had taken 2 semesters of Java, which was better. And this was my second semester of HTML, CSS. And people were letting me do it. It's like, I had like a perfect 100 score in this class. This was my final exam, and this got like 100%. Just something to think about. So yeah, next project. Okay, and we're back in VS Code with my second project. Up here it's called movie search React MovieDB API. Yeah, this is basically what it sounds like. You can search for movies and not a whole lot more. But you can see that I moved away from the vanilla and into React, which automatically this looks much better and much more right to me. So we're just going to start here. I don't have many components. Actually, I think it's just movie row. So I would probably at this point make a new folder called components and put it in there, even though it is the only one, because at this point, what React app really only has one component. If I was building this up, there would be more, and I would need to stick them in there. So let's go to app here. We got a class component. I'm not even sure if I fully knew what that meant then. See here, I would get rid of this because I just don't super care for binding. So what I do is just use arrow functions for everything, and it will handle it for me. I have a pretty decent understanding of binding and things like that, but so okay, I actually forgot this was for the very short period I was using jQuery and Ajax, right? That's kind of unusual since I use Axios for everything. This is redundant. Don't forget to remove your console logs when you're done, but this app never got done, so yeah. That doesn't look too bad. Yeah, that's pretty good. You know, grabbing the search term, passing it to the function. Okay, see, compared to my last one, I've learned how to lay out HTML. It's so much better. Like that's readable to me. If we go over here to movie row, okay, I still haven't gotten into this the spacing yet, like I do now. Where's okay, I see. So we do like that. Probably do that. That's a little better, but still, you know, much cleaner than my other code. We got a view movie function. Yeah. Okay. So as you can see, I still have that one single CSS file that's just a long mess, but that's because I use less when working in React. It's honestly my favorite way to do styling, unless I'm using something like Bootstrap or Materialize. If I'm writing my own styles, I like less. So we got app.less, which has our app class here. Very good. Okay, so yeah, this is just the app classes. So rows should just be row related things. Yeah, that's all nested within one, so it's all related. We've got an empty variables file. So I was thinking, you can see I was planning a little more ahead at this point, but I never got around to using that. This is the CSS reset that I use. I put it in its own file because it's just its own thing. So global. Okay, so this app could be moved to here. Yeah, there's no overlapping styles or anything, so this would be a good way to clean this up a little bit more. So global, but you can see this is like, you know, the wildcard HTML body, just kind of the everything. And then our index, which is what's going to be compiled down into a CSS file, is just the list of imports for everything. I really don't have much more to say about this one because you can see that there was a lot less files to go through, but they were way more organized. Like, you know, I feel like my organization between 1 and 2 just upped so much. So let's get on to the last one. Okay, so this is the last project, but this will have to be done in 2 parts because I have a front-end repo and a back-end repo. Like I mentioned in the other video, this project is still a work in progress. It's not complete yet, but I felt that I'd made enough progress that I could, you know, show you all what I'm doing. So this is the front end, obviously, since we're looking at similar React setup here. You can see I have a lot more folders, but that's because I've also started to introduce Redux into the mix. It's not just the React library now, so we'll start in app.js. Much smaller, much cleaner. React router helps a lot with that. You can see I've also started the spacing. Mostly imports. You know, this handles my routes, and then from there you can see that we've got all these pages that I've made, minus the login, which it should just be called login page, so critiquing my current work. And these are all listed under the views folder. So that'll be our next stop where we open views, which is just a list of these different pages. Browse page isn't done, so I'm going to skip that one. We'll go to the profile page here. This is where we can see that we're importing what we need, which is usually, the load is imported onto the views because I actually want the load to appear for the full page. I don't want to render any of that page unless the entire page is ready to go. And then we've got all of our Redux and action stuff here. Started using component did mount because I learned more about the React lifecycle and how to use those methods. Very handy. This is my favorite by far, probably everybody's. Let's see here, we're getting information. I'm using local storage to save things that I will need throughout the project that gets returned from logging in. Let's see here. On render, we're doing some conditional rendering here with if we want to return the load component or if we want to return the actual profile page. You can see we've got more spacing. Just kind of just a layout here, and then I have a comment. Go over to the register page, check that out. So we got this state, we've got the handle change, register, all looking very similar. This is where I've started to use materialize, so that's what I'm using instead of less for this one. So that looks like a form to me. One of the things I was thinking about doing when I refactored this, just to throw out more critiques of now, is these are all basically the same, but you'll notice that full name cascades down through there. This one has username down through there. So I could make an input component and then just pass in that field and then have it, put in for me, so that way I only have one thing instead of this long list. So that's enough of the views. We can go here and look at the components next. Navigation and pagination is no fun. We'll do one of the movie pages here. Let's do the movie list. Okay, so you can see that I've also started to write comments more often and a little more helpful, because I thought this was a particularly confusing component just to look at when it's really not doing too much. What we're really doing is just checking to see if we're getting any results passed into the component, and if we are, if there's any items in that array, because it should be an array of movies, and if there's not at least one in it, then we don't really need to do anything, but it's also not broken. So if we get an array, and then we also get an array with length, we move on to the next check, which is to see if the array will contain a bunch of objects, right? So we'll check the object to see if it has a date key, a date key or a date property first, because the only ones that will have that are movies that have been scheduled. So if it has a movie.date, then we need to send it over to the movie.schedule component to render it as a scheduled movie. Otherwise, it's going to be rendered as a thumbnail, because the thumbnail will apply to both the profile page and the search page. So if absolutely everything fails, then we get a no results found. So there is probably one of the most complicated components in this app right now. Moving along, still kind of trying to speed up a little bit because there's a lot more to go through in this. I have some authorization. It's a higher order component, which also kind of works as kind of like middleware for the front end. We're using Axios here to set our base URL for our API calls, as well as using interceptors to add the token to the authorization header, just to authenticate the user, make sure that they are who they say they are, they have the right token, and that token has not been tampered with. So if we go down here, the high order component function is going to take in a component, and then it'll run through. It's going to check for a token, and then if there is a token, it will just continue on rendering the component that was passed in, or else it's going to request a login. This is a little broken right now, as you saw in the other video. If you watched it, it did not work, but ideally what I'm wanting to do here is, if there is no token found, we're going to redirect instead of having this. But I can't put this down here because I know about the lifecycle methods now, and that's one of the things you don't want to do within a render component. So finally, we're going to have our Redux stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and open a bunch of these files and do it as one quick swoop because they're pretty similar. As you're going to see here, we have index.actions, which works kind of like my index.less file, and it's just a big export of all of my broken down modular files. So we're going to go to movie actions here. We're going to see some comments to explain what we're expecting from the or to be sent to the API. This is what you're wanting to send, so that way if you're having any issues, we're importing all of our action types. And as you can see, just Axios, Axios, Axios. This is just a bunch of API calls. Looking at the time, like I said, I'm probably gonna go through the rest of this really quick because this isn't a lesson in Redux. So you can see here I've done the same process with the reducer, importing all those separate reducers in. But they all look basically the same with an initial state that will always have some kind of loading state for that, and then we're going to have a switch statement within the reducer to determine what type of action was sent to it. So I believe that about covers everything major we got going on in this app. Sorry this actually ran on a little bit longer than I thought it was going to, but thank you if you have stuck with me this far, and thank you so much for not just this video, for any video you've watched. If you've talked with me in a Facebook group or in Slack or at Lambda School, if you happen to go anywhere, just thank you all for all that you've done and the support and helping me grow. I've learned a lot from the people I've met on this journey, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. So thank you all. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down below, and I will see you in the next video.